What makes a serial killer? Why do these serial killers kill people? Does serial killing give them gratification in life? Or do they just do these out of their insecurities? Everything morbid is a source of hideous attraction for us. Because of this, serial killers are seen as horrifying and incredibly interesting. We are compelled to want to know more about these disturbed people, or at the very least, once they have our attention, we are unable to turn away. Welcome to our New Fear Unlocked. Like and subscribe, or else this spider will jump out on your screen. You have 5 seconds to do so. Now, let's find out the 7 fascinating habits serial killers often display when they're young. The first habit is obsession with starting a fire. Young serial killers frequently exhibit psychotic traits, and pyromania, or the fascination with lighting things on fire, is a behavior that is typical among young psychopaths. According to Dr. Ho, other distinguishing characteristics include a lack of empathy or a predisposition to cause property harm, often by starting fires. The son of Sam killer, David Berkowitz, was so fascinated with flames as a young, whereas his pals gave him the nickname Pyro. After he was captured, some reports claim he admitted to starting up to 1,400 fires around New York. But why? And what attracts serial killers to start fires? A serial murderer is particularly drawn to setting things on fire, and doing so is a reflection of their disturbed mental condition since they like wreaking havoc. Due to their prior misdeeds, many serial killers also become arsonists. They usually start a fire to destroy any proof of their wrongdoings and to avoid a later investigation. This might be applied to a dead body or the entire crime scene. Fire frequently hinders investigations by delaying or preventing appropriate study. Some serial killers use fire to destroy evidence to get one step ahead of the police. Fire can destroy a considerable quantity of evidence, yet many crime scenes can still be examined and can yield helpful information. The second habit is stealing and fighting. Similar to how many psychopaths have severe behavioral issues as kids. Fighting, truancy, stealing, and other behavioral issues that evolve from minor offenses to more serious ones can happen. The Golden State Killer, also known as the original Night Stalker, was active in California and is thought to have murdered at least 12 individuals between 1976 and 1986 alone. Class rings were a favorite of his, and he enjoyed stealing them from his victims. He often used complicated knots to tie up his victims before murdering them and a range of murderous weapons. A former police officer who still lived in the neighborhood where many of the crimes occurred, Joseph James D'Angelo, was arrested by Sacramento police in April 2018 after a significant period of no leads. The third habit is thrill-seeking behaviors. Some serial killers exhibit early thrill-seeking tendencies because of the way their brains are wired, whether or not they are psychopaths. According to Dr. Ho, serial killers seem to have certain biological predispositions. For instance, we discover that many of them have extremely low brain reactivity, such that they are really difficult to excite, which may partially explain their thrill-seeking tendency to simply feel anything a little bit. But keep in mind that being an adrenaline junkie does not automatically make one a serial killer. Yet for some reason, thrill killers murder for the sheer enjoyment of it, even though they occasionally steal money or other goods from their victims. One of the most terrifying serial murderers ever was Robert Hansen. In Anchorage, Alaska, he kidnapped and killed at least 17 women throughout a 12-year murdering rampage in the 1970s and 80s. After torturing the victims for days, he released them to flee for their lives in the wilderness, but Hansen's evil plan was not yet finished. He targeted strippers and sex workers, inviting them on trips in his bush plane and promising a weekend stay at his remote wood cabin in Matanuska-Susitna Valley, about 35 miles north of Anchorage. Hansen pursued the worn-out victims through the bush with his .223 caliber Ruger Mini 14 rifle and a knife. But before we proceed to the very end, please leave us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell for more interesting content. Alright, let's go! The fourth habit is substance abuse. Psychopaths may exhibit early drug use, perhaps as a preteen. Along with other early behavioral issues, an antisocial personality disorder is frequently accompanied by these. Of course, this does not imply that all young people who take drugs go on to conduct violent crimes. However, juvenile psychopaths are more likely to have this tendency than older ones. Consider the serial murderer Jeffrey Dahmer as an example. He started drinking while he was a youngster and was an alcoholic by the time he graduated from high school, according to the Crime Museum. The fifth habit is excessive lying and trickery. Many young people try to cover up their actions by lying. This is therefore not an indicator that a person would become a serial murderer on his own. However, excessive lying may be a symptom of psychopathy. Numerous psychopaths engage in excessive lying and joy in fooling others, sometimes apparently for no reason, only to test whether they can get away with it, according to research. Furthermore, John Wayne Gacy, who murdered 33 men and boys in and around Cook County, Illinois in the 1970s, was one of the creepiest serial murderers to ever exist. Gacy used a magic trick to fool his victims into wearing handcuffs. He would put the handcuffs around himself first, then turn around and take them off. The victim would be amazed and ask how the trick was performed. In response, Gacy would instruct them to extend their hands and perform the same trick on them. Unfortunately, the victim was unable to easily free himself from the handcuffs, and he was now helpless to defend himself. Before the murder, Gacy also said the real trick is, "You've got to have the key," in a sinister manner. The sixth habit is a lack of empathy towards animals. When it comes to hurting animals, many serial killers showed a lack of regret when they are young. Dahmer, for instance, had a history of dissecting dead animals he discovered in the woods and had even dissected his dog. He wasn't alone either. One characteristic that many serial killers have is the need for control combined with a lack of empathy. That action can cause it to spin out of control. "Let me dismember an ant," a young psychopath would think. This thinking starts minor and may appear innocent, but for the growth of a psychopath, depending on what elevates their cortisol levels and adrenaline, is different for each MO of a killer. It doesn't take much for a serial murderer to switch from murdering cats and bugs to murdering people. Serial murderers are intelligent. They may be incredibly persuasive and skilled manipulators, which is how they excel at what they do. And yes, they do objectify their victims. Many serial murderers begin their terrible crimes by abusing vulnerable animals, whether they are pets or wildlife that has been trapped. The likes of David, son of Sam Berkowitz, Albert DeSalvo, Jeffrey Dahmer, and the Boston Strangler are all known to have targeted animals in addition to killing several people. They are by no means the only sick men who have harmed animals during the past century, either in addition to or before their horrible acts against humans. Furthermore, before dismembering 17 people, Jeffrey Dahmer, also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, practices brutal butchering techniques on dogs and cats. Dahmer finished off his brutality by impaling the animals' skulls on poles, as if slicing at animals wasn't horrifying enough. Meanwhile, the Boston Strangler, Albert DeSalvo, had previously brutally imprisoned cats and dogs in orange crates to be used as target practice. Between June 14, 1962 and January 4, 1964, DeSalvo killed 13 women. The last habit is late bedwetting. The McDonald Triad is cited by many experts as a collection of rules frequently utilized by forensic professionals to evaluate the possibility that a person may be a serial murderer. These three characteristics of the triad include starting fires, being unkind to animals, and bedwetting in later life. Nevertheless, it is still unclear whether or not this description is correct. However, many children pee on the bed, and some do so much past the appropriate age, just like lying. However, this does not imply that all children who pee their beds at night develop into psychopaths. Late bedwetting is frequently a symptom of a physical problem or the outcome of emotional trauma. However, there could be a link between psychopathy and late-night bedwetting. How aggressive a kid develops later in life may depend on the environment in which they are grown. There are a lot of different things that might influence someone's tendency to perform serial killing. Environmental factors and sociopathy may both be involved. It's crucial to avoid classifying people or assuming the worst, but it's intriguing to consider the numerous habits that experts claim several serial killers shared. And there you have it, the 7 fascinating habits serial killers often display when they're young. We hope you enjoyed our today's video. What do you think about these habits? What are the habits that should not be incorporated with serial killers? Let us know your thoughts and leave them in the comment section. But before you go, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell for more fascinating content. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.